Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Wake Up Missoula. I'm your host, Scott Ramp, here to usher you in. And Friday, this last week, was President's Day on Monday, so we didn't have any city council or committee meetings, but I do have some clips for you guys featuring the Harvey's Tenet Union. But before that, we're going to jump right in, and we're going to talk about some of the announcements that the City of Missoula's Mayor Andrea Davis and Police Chief Mike Collier shared their thoughts on the City Council meeting of January 26th on the immigration unrest currently happening in our country, response to many questions they have received. And Mayor Davis's quote says, "The City of Missoula values our constitutional rights, and we hope to uphold due process for everyone. The Missoula Police Department does not have a role in immigration enforcement. The city's police authority is to enforce the city and state laws. Missoula police officers do not ask for proof of immigration status when interacting with the public. For instances, traffic stops. The PD upholds public safety for all the residents and all our visitors. Since President Trump issued his executive order concerning immigration in January of last year, I have held two significant roundtables with city and county attorneys, sheriffs and police leadership, immigration attorneys, Internal Rescue Committee staff, and the immigration and refugee nonprofit Soft Landing Missoula. Other community leaders and I have heard people who are here legally with various permissions are fearful of being targeted. There have been no large-scale immigration enforcement by federal agents in Missoula, but we know that enforcement and violence has been escalating in other cities and other states." End quote by Mayor Davis. Chief Collier, Mike Collier, the city police chief, quoted and said in his statement, "I am concerned that the people will see federal immigration enforcement officers acting in ways that they don't approve of, and will lump together all law enforcement as untrustworthy, and that will affect our officers. Please see the national news, immigrations and customs enforcement officers jumping out of unmarked vehicles wearing uniforms and using equipment that does not identify them and covering their faces. All of these are strictly prohibited by the police department of Missoula. Missoula police officers wear masks in two circumstances: health emergencies, like a pandemic, or in severe weather where it is at risk of frostbite. They will remove masks when anyone asks for their proposed purposes of identification." That's an interesting phrase, but more quote is, "They wear their name tags on their outmost garments. They use unmarked cars sparingly in non-enforcement situations such as administrative purposes and detective work. It is not good for any of us if people do not know that we are the police." So that's some of the quotes from there. And part of this has to do with a lot of different things happening just across the United States, and growing concerns for the community. And with him in terms of protest, he was quoted in saying, "It is within your First Amendment right to protest, object, or record law enforcement interactions," end quote. All right, Montana, let alone Missoula, isn't really known for a major hub of problematic immigrants, as the news would have you believe. Soft Landing and many other immigration programs have been in place in Missoula and have been working with individuals, and some anecdotal information on people updating their passports here at the library as those worries grow. In other announcements, the Mountain Line Airport bus stop has been getting upgrades since earlier this year, with construction set to finish by mid-spring. Spring also tends to be the perfect time for a lot of construction, so a lot of developers are going to be breaking ground and start building some things here in around Missoula, so look out for those. If you're interested in reporting potholes, that is a year-round service here. It's a chip and seal program, which recycles old asphalt and fills into those potholes, and you can report a pothole at ci.missoula.mt.us. All right, we're going to jump right in. Missoula just established another tenants union on par with the Travois Village, Harvey's tenant unions. Also is under the moniker of Oak. I got to go back to my notes. Oakwood Ventures, which is a Texas-based company that has bought up those unions, has bought up those properties and mobile parks and jacked up those prices in the last couple of years. So we're going to kick things off with Pastor Baird Linke, who spoke to the community about this as well. So this is what he had to say.
Solidarity is a value shared by a lot of communities. It is the way that people in every culture and country and faith in the world have stood up and fought for their rights, for their livelihoods, their humanity, for all of our shared human history. That is the center of my faith tradition, that God is with us, normal human beings. And the way that we know the divine, whatever vocabulary we use to describe it, is by standing together with our neighbors. My job is to preach God's presence, and I believe that is what I have the opportunity to do here at the Tenets Union launch. Christ teaches that God can be found wherever people come together to care for one another. Whatever you believe, whatever vocabulary you use to describe what all this is about, know that I am praying for you, for the Tenets Union, and for this community, and that you are not alone.
Amen. So that was Baird Linke, a pastor out of Bonner. He's relatively new to the community, and he was very adamant about promoting his church. Okay, so Oakwood Ventures property management companies out of Texas bought up both Harvey and Travis Mobile Park, as I already said, and began to raise prices to the point of unsustainability for most people who aren't on a fixed income. Jackie, one of the residents who joined the union recently, spoke about this.
But everything changed when Oakwood bought the park. The rent went up over 70%. My rent didn't go up $10 or even $25. It went up $195. That's not right. To put this into perspective for you, I currently live on just $1,009 a month. My income is fixed. My lot rent and fees are now $710 every month. This does not include the $600 a year I must pay for homeowners insurance and nearly $400 in property taxes to also remain in my home. If rent increases again next year the way it has the past 2 years, I will no longer be able to stay in my home. I will be homeless. I have no family left that I can move in with. My home, the one I built after giving up everything, is the only stability I have. And I'm not alone. Most of the residents at Harvey's are seniors or people on fixed incomes. We simply cannot absorb these kinds of increases. Oakwood is not losing money. They are operating in the black. What they are doing is increasing profit, without caring that they are potentially displacing people who have nowhere else to go, people who have worked their whole lives, people who believe that a mobile home community would offer safety and stability. I am asking you please to help us by offering your solidarity with our mission, by standing alongside us and our neighbors at Travois. You can help protect residents like me. No one should lose their home because a corporation decides they want higher profits from people who have no ability to pay more.
All right, and so there was some of the tenants speaking on this as well, and also speaking in terms of mobile parks in general. Is like they have become, they have always been the go-to for affordable housing in general. A lot of times it's like you get the property and then you establish zones and you have hookups. And then people just hook up their trailers and they just pay rent for their lots on that particular site. That's kind of how it's always kind of been for a lot of these folks. And then once they change ownership, and especially during the pandemic with high amounts of people just buying out these trailer parks left and right, not necessarily to redevelop them most of the time, if anything, just to get as much money as they can out of them. And it's a corporate model. The corporate model is you got to make more money. That's just the case. But part of this is that the fact that there's a detachment from the actual people to the corporation, which brings me to my next quote, which brings up Eric Brills, a union member, and is also part of the bargaining folks who spoke with representatives from Oakwood. And this is some of the results of their initial virtual meeting.
In this meeting, we presented our top priority demands to Oakwood. These are: 1, walk back recent dramatic lot rent increases. 2, cap annual rent increases at no more than 3% tied to cost of living adjustment standards. And 3, removal of the clause that Oakwood gets first dibs on buying our homes if we want to sell, which is known as a owner's right of first refusal clause. Here's the big news. After just one conversation, we already got one of our demands met. Oakwood agreed to strike the right of first refusal clause from our lease. Yeah! Furthermore, management agreed to continue meetings over the next few months and promised that corporate owners would come to Missoula for an in-person meeting in April. At no point in the history of Missoula have tenants generated such meaningful power and actually won concessions from their landlord in this way. These results prove this process is working.
All right, so there's a little taste of that, and you can watch the whole entire launch party that happened. We just uploaded it to our YouTube page, so if you get a chance to look at it, you can go to MCAT, at MCAT TV Missoula. So those are some of the, what I kind of did in lieu of the lack of city council meetings. There are a couple other things here and there. I probably could have done county commissioners meeting. They usually meet on Thursday afternoons at 2 o'clock inside the Sophie Marie room inside the county courthouse annex building. That's a mouthful right there, but still, nobody wants to be the bad guy, and holding people accountable directly has been harder and harder for folks to get access to folks in general. While things are moving forward in the right direction, Missoula is also on track, train tracks that is, to have a major merger between North Fork and Union Pacific for $85 billion, and this will affect 50,000 miles of train tracks. This would also allow one company to connect East and West Coast by way of railway. Montana is concerned, and the proposed merger has drawn attention from businesses and Montana congressional delegation in Washington, D.C., who have signed letters urging regulators to proceed with caution when conduct a rigorous and comprehensive review, with elected leaders expressing concerns here in Montana. One would think Union Pacific and North Fork Southern are major players in the state. They are not. They are by possibly maybe around 10% of railroad tracks, which 90% of Montana's railways are controlled by Burlington Northern Santa Fe, since they were once owned by Dennis Washington of the Montana Rail Link, which sold after his company to retire and being one of the first Montana billionaires at the time of growth. According to Missoula, Montana Free Press, Union Pacific was founded in 1862 and built the eastern half of the first transcontinental railway and was completed in 1869. Today, it operates 32,200 miles of track in 23 states, mostly west of Chicago. Last year, the company made more than $7 billion moving freight. Its primary competitor is Burlington Northern Santa Fe, so you can see that there's some bias to this in general, but regardless of that, North Fork was founded in 1982 following the merger of North Fork and Western Railway and Southern Railway, which operates 19,000 miles in about 22 states in the east. Its primary competitor is CSX Transportation, and of course, Burlington Northern Santa Fe has argued that the merger would be anti-competitive and would give rail shippers, including Montana farmers, fewer options, thus increasing prices. For example, if a farmer near Great Falls ships grain in an East Coast community served by North Fork, the shipping charges could increase once it's part of the Union Pacific, but this part, UP has denied that it would increase rates. These are the kinds of things that have slowly happened over the course of the last 20, 30 years, with mini mergers becoming the norm and the administration letting these large mergers become more common. You know, you have monopolies, and heck, you have duopolies where you have an unofficial agreement between two companies, not calling out Hershey's and the Mars company, but they're a prime example of having a major say in a lot of the processing and use of chocolate. But we're not going to get into that, as the overall outcome of this merger is approved would be a 40% of all railways being controlled by two merged company. So combined, 40% of all rails in the United States. And you know, AI is another big development, and since Trump took office, resulting in many unregulated and expediting the process to speed this potential market that has not really made any money in AI, and most economic experts would agree that this is a bubble. So while data centers are targeting large areas in rural America, you don't get as rural as Montana. While Montana might not be viewed as an artificial intelligence hotbed, it is considered among the top state in the country for potential of power the AI revolution. As an analyst CNBC published last July, based on a grid reliability and average market electricity prices, named Montana as the #3 state in the country for potential power data centers. Data center developers and energy executives works to capture a piece of rapidly growing market. Preliminary agreements that Northwestern Energy, Montana's largest utility, has signed with 3 companies in the past 14 months have given Montanans a general idea of how much electricity these large new data centers would require. Not to mention, the PSC just raised rates on power by 17%, which was approved December. So if you've noticed your power bills going up, even though this has been quite a warmer winter comparatively the last years, you can start to see some of those kind of things, all those pieces kind of falling together. And of course, the biggest takeaway for the Montana Free Press article is the lack of information, and the demand for an AI digital arms race is taking liberties away from communities and streamlining these centers with little to no information on pressures to the grid. So Montana Environmental Information Center, MEIC, is concerned that Northwestern Energy existing customers' electricity bills will rise to fund these power plants, if not already. Substations, transmission lines to serve new data centers that might shutter in a few years' time. To put it in perspective, John Buck, who used to represent the state of Montana in terms of what they did with the money, the treasurer of Montana, he presented that to the city of Missoula a couple years back, talking about how corporate tax rates have gone down over the last 5 years, with property taxes rising and taking the lion's share of the tax dollars, which isn't too weird since Montana had a surplus of tax revenue over the last couple of years, resulting in those rebates we've been getting. The Homestead Act was also a way to kick the can down the road to keep our prices down for the reevaluations of our houses. My coworker here was saying his sister was looking to offer him some gig work out of Great Falls, with some making as much as $3,000 a week, in terms of putting down these fibers and stuff and other technology moving forward for infrastructure improvements. The future is here, and Montana is going through many growing pains as the national change is beginning to influence everyday life in Montana. The governor is also launching a task force to reform licensing for many contractors, trade workers, and could impact over 170,000 Montana jobs. The task force will aim at bringing in business owners, regulators, and more to the table and discussing a streamlined process to remove barriers for getting essential licensing for folks aiming to get into those trades. And they include dentists, funeral director, contractors, associations from the healthcare industry, ranging from nurses to pharmacists to physician assistants, make up the plurality of this. So in many ways, this is kind of a bolstering of unions in Montana, if not indirectly, since many of these jobs will affect blue-collar type positions. The new task force is essentially will look at overhauling 233 different jobs under the 50 categories. So this is kind of like a big deal. And it was kind of weird because, you know, these task force were only kind of created as a response to the housing crisis here in Montana with the raising rates. And it seemed like they've found some good ideas when it comes to the making these kind of tasks force. So it looks like they're going to be moving this forward even more. So this is kind of weird because this is probably the most pro-union thing Gianforte has ever done in terms of, you know, being part of corporate America and just kind of selling and just moving to Montana to just kind of settle down, but then get into politics to do things. But regardless, you know, speaking of everyday life, Montana was also featured in an article about the death of Robert Duvall. KVGO Talk Radio brought up the Lonesome Dove, a 1990s miniseries that focused on the Old West in Montana with Robert Duvall as the lead. Lonesome Dove won 7 Emmys, and Duvall was nominated for Outstanding Lead Actor in a Miniseries or a Special, and he also won Performance by an Actor in a Miniseries in television in the 1990s Golden Globes too. So I'm only bringing this up because, you know, Montana history, you know, talking about this, and among those we lost was also the Reverend Jesse Jackson, who was tied to Martin Luther King Jr. and many civil rights movements in U.S. history. Born in Greenville, South Carolina, Jesse Jackson grew up during the Jim Crow era, where, like many Black Americans at the time, had a very different water fountains, bathrooms, etc. In 1959, Jesse rejected a contract from a minor league professional baseball team so he could attend the University of Illinois on a football scholarship. While in Chicago was a short-lived where more racial discrimination prevented him from playing quarterback, he transferred to a black college in North Carolina. At A&T, Jackson played quarterback and was elected student body president. He became active in local civil rights protests against segregated libraries, theaters, and restaurants. From there, he did presidential runs throughout the 80s against Reagan as a Democrat, and in the 90s shifted the Democratic Party towards Bill Clinton as he wanted to be more progressive, and Bill Clinton went a little bit more to the left center, and he considered Bill Clinton's party more of a third party to the Democrats as opposed to what he was bringing to the table. So interesting tidbit of history right there. And in 2017, he was diagnosed with Parkinson's, and by July 2023, he slowed down and stepped down from his organization, Rainbow Push. He called out Israel and their collective punishment to Palestine civilians after October 7th attacks, calling them massacres. Those were just some of the major parts of American history, as he was a part of a lot of the American experiences from the 1960s to the present. We see the world through many different lenses here at MCAT, and one of those few places where I can do shows like this and bring various programs and clips to Missoula for Missoula. If you represent a nonprofit or civic organization, much like the Missoula Tenants Union, like I just showed you in some of those clips, or a civic organization like the City of Missoula, would like to sign up for MCAT or to come in and do free recordings, you can go to MCAT.org, and under the Services tab, you can request a recording and fill out a form that takes less than 5 minutes to fill out, and we'll get your event, rally, or cause recorded for history and posterity into the future. At this point, MCAT has become an uncut community archiver where you can see over 35 years of programs on YouTube. And without further ado, here are some of those programs that have just dropped this past week.
One of the things that we've had to face are laws passed down by the state that say that if you have a P.O. box, then instead of a street address, then you're not allowed to vote, which is specifically targeting folks on reservations that rely on that also, as mentioned, tend to vote certain ways. So it's like a lot of these we see, like, for example, voter ID laws that are passed. There's the voter IDs that are accepted tend to be like driver's license, passports, or, as mentioned, concealed carry weapons. Student IDs are not considered valid, which you can tell sort of like who's being targeted by this. Similar.
And I knocked on the door, and this big burly guy with dark hair and a tattoo of a grizzly bear on one bicep and a woodpecker on the other opens the door, and he looks at me and he said, "I was wondering when you people would find me." And he invited me in. And he told me this nice story about how he and Rusty worked for an entire summer excavating an old gold mine in the forest. But after a while, he got very angry and emotional, and he stood up and he started just gesticulating and pointing his stubby finger at me every time he said something, and he started berating the Forest Service and then the government in general. And it turned out they were mad at the Forest Service because the mine was in a wilderness area and they couldn't build a road into the mine to take out the tailings. And then he went off about everything about the government. And I started getting nervous.
Since time immemorial, indigenous people have cherished the place we now know as Montana as a homeland worth fighting for. Across the state, now serene landscapes bear silent witness to history-changing battles and treaty councils held between sovereign nations. Historic sites illustrate what daily life was like in an earlier time, both the good times and the bad ones, reminding us that even though much has changed, we have more in common with the people of the past than we often realize. Historic sites stand as reminders of the major events, like the Great Depression and World War II, that played defining roles in the lives of our forebears. Historic places serve as memorials to the hard physical labor endured by so many of our ancestors, as well as shrines to the conspicuous wealth enjoyed by the lucky few.
Events that we're trying to bring more awareness to this program that we're launching. And so a couple weeks ago, we partnered with the Roxy, and they screened a movie. I can't remember off the top of my head.
I saw it, and now I can't remember either.
So we've been going to First Friday. We've had just all over the community. We've been having little pop-up sites. And the next one that we're going to be having is a Tai Chi event. And that's going to be happening on March 8th at noon. And you can definitely call us to get us signed up for it. It should be really fun. We've partnered with Parks and Rec, and so Parks and Rec is at our table for talking about these events that we want to bring. Public health is as well. So we've got some really good community support.
Really good partnership.
Yeah.
Welcome back, everyone. Let's talk about some movies that are coming out this week. And it's time for Pre-Critic, where I prejudge a movie based on the synopsis, poster, and just kind of the vibe. Sometimes I watch the trailer, but for the most part, I kind of get the gist of this one. Essentially, a guy who's the other kid who is in line to inherit a bunch of money from a dead parent has to essentially kill 7 siblings that are ahead of him in the thing. So apparently he's kind of so Glenn Powell is back again, cementing his 2025-2026 Pedro Pascal Award as most seen leading man. Essentially, you get a guy whose daddy is rich and has an affair resulting in him being a half related to and entitled to a billionaire's fortune. So this starts as a run-of-the-mill man versus a bunch of rich trust fund kids, fights for the rights to take money from a dead guy. So it's like Kill Bill, but the bill is the money that they want. All right, and then we got I Can Only Imagine 2. I didn't see the first one, but when based on a true story gets a sequel, you get this movie about the struggles of success. And like many music movies, you have those kind of like the rise, you have the stumble, the fall, the rebrand, it's kind of like, it's always like in a drugstore, it's like they always rise to fall and then rise again. And this is kind of like at the point where they're already at the height of the career and now they have to fight for some kind of relevance. So it's like a continuation. It's very much like mid-level stuff. So this isn't the part of the movie where they have to think about the whole life before they go on stage. Maybe not. They might have not done that in the previous movie. But Psycho Killer, a widowed cop must find her husband's killer on a long wintry highway where any one of those mini homes off the highway could be a secret killer. Watch as this lone woman goes on a quest to find the killer, probably have her police station or police department chief tell her to stop or be fired for independent investigation. You've gone too far, Officer Thorne, and it's a real pain/thorn in my side. I want you off the case. And most likely the killer gets too close to her as she investigates and uses her wits to fight bats against the killer, otherwise known as Psycho Killer. All right. Couldn't think of a better name. Regardless, The Dreadful. In lieu of those English-era movies coming around, this movie follows the trend of hunky man with shady past fighting his way back to his lady or something. Watches this young lady living just shy of polite society, deals with the violence and harsh reality of medieval times, days of nights. But like rough and dirty nights, that this pure lady can melt his heart and whatnot. Kit Harington comes back with Sophie Turner, and I guess a movie called The Dreadful. And isn't it dreadful? Yeah. So there's a lot of movies that are coming out this weekend that are people like, I'm just like, I guess these are movies. So am I going to see them? Probably not. I don't know. It just like more and more of these. It's like this is kind of like just the same stuff, but it's just like different people doing the same things that have been done in the past. I don't know. That's just me. But regardless of that, we have a new dub and stuff for you guys. So here is a fun short from the 1941 movie, Meet John Doe.
Opening scene. Dog on a couch. Black and white. Things kind of happening. And, nah. Man, I'll never get into writing college at this rate. Thanks, Buster. I know I can count on you.
Sister, we're here to annoy you. Boom.
Get off me. I'm too pretty. Stop, please. Stop. Oh, that's called a headstand.
What's going on here? Oh, no, please. Leave her alone. Leave her alone, please.
Come on, Susie. Let's
trying to get into college. Trying to be a writer.
I got a dolly we can tear her arms off. Now you get off the floor. You look like a darn fool. What are you writing over here anyways, huh? Articles of impeachment? Just kidding. Maybe someday. You know, once those little girls leave this house, I'll be an empty nester. And I'll be able to turn your room into a gym. And I'll be able to work out and all the fellas will be coming right towards me. I'm sure they will, Mother. But as soon as they see me, they'll be
Where'd you get this
Bam!
one?
Oh, that was pretty mean. Well, I know you've been stressing about the writing recital, but, you know, you gotta do it. You gotta get called a writing recital. It's called a writing assignment, and I'm writing a cover letter so I can get in. Oh, I don't get this whole scholarship thing. Why can't you just get a predatory loan? I don't want to be stuck paying for college way after I'm done with college, do I? Do I look like I can afford it? I'm trying to be a writer, you see here, and it might not be the I love you. Thank you for everything you've done for me, but I have to do this. I have to do this for me, and if I don't do it for me, I don't even know what I could do. I am a writer. I want to be like Emma Dickinson, and nobody will ever... I think you mean Emily Dickinson. Tomato, tomato. It's all the same thing. I just want to be a known writer of the 1900s. Don't make me show you the back of my hand. I just can't seem to get the spelling right on the typewriter, but I don't even know what to write about anymore. Well, I remember when you were a little kid, you would just make up all these fun stories and everything like that. You know, you'd be a cowboy or a cowgirl. You'd do all sorts of fun things like that. Why do you write about that? Write about what you know. It seems to me that this is a have to and not a want to writing assignment. Wow, wow, wow. Look at you. Can't even write when you're being told to write. If you want a job to be a writer, you're going to have to write other people's stuff. And if you want to write some of your own stuff and you can't even do that, you're right. I'm a failure. Oh. Well, you know what? I got something special for you. Maybe this will help juice those creative juices. Mother, if it's an upper, I'm on all sorts of uppers right now, and I still can't write. Oh, Mother, I don't even know what to do anymore. Oh, you see what I got here in this box? Is it a gun? Well, no. But it was an old feather from way back when. You would dip it in ink and you write it on paper. Sometimes that paper would be made from hemp. You think I'll ever be able to write on hemp paper again? Not if William Randolph Hearst have anything to say about Mother.
Hey guys, welcome back. Let's talk about some things that are happening this weekend. It is the last weekend of the Big Sky Documentary Film Festival. If you have any interest in checking out those films, they're going to be having those award screenings and big kind of shows happening this weekend and evenings, all happening at around the Wilma Theater. To get more information, of course, you can always go to their website at bigskyfilmfest.org. So here's a kind of an example, just kind of give you an idea, to show the showings and other things like that. They have dog shops, they have the big pitch that's coming up as well, and I'll talk to you a little bit more about this later on, but I want to focus a little bit more on events that are happening here in Missoula around it, and also some movies that are also showing here at the Wilma Theater, Roxy Theater, MCT, and also Zootown Arts Community Center, otherwise known as the ZAC. So kicking things off this morning for any other events that are happening around town, Lifelong Learning Center is doing healthcare career exploration. So if you've ever been interested in doing healthcare, Lifelong Learning Center does this class. They do many other classes as well, but this is one that's kicking off this morning around 9 o'clock. Storyler Strides Mommy Work Our class is an ongoing thing that happens Monday through Friday at Bonner Park at 9:30 a.m. Little Clubs Play Group at the Sports Barn at 10 a.m. Open Curling at the Glacier Ice Rink at 10 a.m. Missoula Food Bank Meal Distribution at 10 a.m. That kicks off. People who have any kind of food insecurity can go there and get the resources there. They also have access to shelters as well. Family Fun Time at Mismo Gymnastics. Big Sky Pitch. This is the thing that's happening at Missoula Children's Theater this morning at 10 a.m. It is an opportunity for 10 filmmaker teams to present their documentary work in progress to a panel of top commissioning editors and funders for documentary films. This event is open to public audiences of filmmakers, industry representatives, festival attendees, and students. And so that's happening today at 10 a.m. Speaking around this morning here at the Missoula Public Library, Tiny Tales is an activities reading-based program here at the Missoula Public Library, starting at 10:30 a.m. on the second floor. Lunch at the Missoula Senior Center at 11 a.m. And they also have a luncheon every single day at the Poverell Center. Lunch at the Senior Center is only Monday through Friday. Watercolor and Yarns at 12 noon every Friday on the fourth floor of the Missoula Public Library. Big Sky Documentary Film Festival is doing their short blocks at the Roxy Theater starting at noon. This is one of their mini short blocks of documentaries. This is the 11th one, where they show various mini short documentaries. All Abilities Art Club at the base starting at 1 p.m. Brown Bag and Bones. Paleontologist Jason C. Poole will lead Brown Bag and Pools at the Natural History Center this afternoon at 1 p.m. Sunflower Siege Engine at Zootown Arts Community Center at 1 p.m. This is Moments of Resilience Are Collapsed and Woven Together. This is a documentary based on the reclamation of Cahokia and a representation of the ancestors as one's reflection of their body as they exist in the world today. So this is the indigenous-led occupation of Alcatraz Island after they closed. This is part of the federal law that if there's any federal surplus that is unused after X amount of time, indigenous people have the right to reclaim it. That law was eventually changed, or at least kind of shuddered at that thought of it, because this was also during the Nixon administration. So who knows what kind of things he got into after that. So Youth Adult Writers Group at Missoula Public Library at 3:30 p.m. Learn computer animation with Blender here at MCAT in this very room in our studio space at 4 p.m. This goes from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. It's all about a great workshop for people to work on the 3D animation. Schoolhouse Docs, this is featuring kids who have made and young adults who have made documentaries. This is doing it at the Zootown Arts Community Center at 4 p.m. And they got Powwow People at Missoula Children's Theater is immersed in rhythms and relationships with contemporary native powwows, one organized by filmmakers themselves. Structured over a single day, the film follows 4 figures who reflect past, present, and future traditions. It culminates in an unbroken 30-minute dance sequence, drawing viewers into the movement, texture, and collective life of beloved complex community. And then the Q&A with respective filmmaker Sky Hoppenka. Tango Dance Party tonight at Montana Moonlight Studios starting at 6 p.m. Planetarium Show at 6 and 7 p.m. is they're featuring How Stars Built Our Universe. Karaoke at the Jack Saloon at 7 p.m. Leaf and Quiet Off the Rails is that going to be at 7 p.m. Country Swing Dance at Showtime Academy at 7 p.m. Les Stuck at Free Cycles is performing at 7 p.m. With The Worst Feeling. The Jive is going to be at the Old Post at 7:30 p.m. Can't Drink Salt Water is going to do their second weekend documentary showing. Actually, wait, no, it's not their second weekend, but it's going to be at second weekend. It's a place. This is Can't Drink Salt Water by Kendrick Potter. A Life Illuminated at this is a Wilma showing of one of the documentaries following a pioneer marine biologist, one of the first women in her field amongst the first human to explore the ocean's twilight zone as she descends 3,300 feet into its darkness depths. From capturing the first ever footage of the elusive giant squid to uncovering the glowing mysteries of the deep bioluminescence, she embarks on the most daring quest yet, documenting a phenomenon that could transform our understanding of life on Earth. So, starting at 8 p.m. tonight at the Wilma Theater. Demon Lover Diary at the Zootown Arts Community Center. Before American Movie, there was a Demon Lover Diary. Joel McDonald dive into the making of a low-budget horror film that becomes a disturbing story of its own. The factory workers who grew up in comic book stores and B-movies are fulfilling the lifetime dream. They're producing their own low-budget horror movie. Jeff and Joel, lovers of cinema, filmmakers and friends of theirs named Mark, have to come out to Michigan to help the dream come true. They're shooting The Demon Lover for Don and Jerry. So this is at 8:30 at Zootown Arts Community Center. Trent Brooks Band is going to be playing at the Sunrise Saloon. Tomcats of the Union and Matty O'Neill is going to wrap things up at the Union Club tonight at 10 p.m. And then as we jump into Saturday, make your own sauerkraut and quick pickles at Lifelong Learning Center. Title installation with Deb at Home Resources. This is from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. This is about basically putting tile in, and with featuring expert Deb. Learn Home Resources, a special professional installer. Participants will learn ins and outs of everything tile. Projects can be intimidated to start, but often become complicated to finish. And then Deb will also share years of experience and knowledge throughout this session. And then we have our winter markets happening from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. at the locals only Badlander combination, and also the Southgate Mall near Shields. We'll do in theirs at 10 a.m. From 9 a.m. to 10 p.m. And then Polar Plunge, if you want to go into those kind of cold thing. Lolo Hot Springs is doing a Polar Plunge starting at 10 a.m. on Saturday. Missoula Art Museum is doing a museum tour at 11 a.m. Storytime at the Missoula Public Library starts at 11:30 with a new time in the Saturdays. Saturday kids activity at the Natural History Center at 11. Bioactive Vivarium at the Karis Nursery helps create your own bioactive world. Try ice skating at Glacier. They're doing a couple sessions for people who want to start off skating at Glacier Ice Rink. It's 12 noon, 12:30-ish. Competition shorts. This is where They're going to be showing off their short documentaries at the Wilma. So they'll be showing short documentaries at the Wilma. This is for the competition, so they're going to be wrapping up this weekend. MCAT Saturday drop-ins every Saturday at 1 to 3. We'll not be doing it next weekend, as next weekend we'll be hosting the Scouts of America. Hands-on science engineering at 2 p.m. Spectrum. Receive a Dance for the Wild at Westside Theater. This is a wild and evening-length contemporary dance performance that invites audience to an immersive landscape of movement, image, and emotion. This is going to be at the Westside Theater by the train tracks. Lady Grizz basketball game versus Weber State starts at 2 p.m. at Adams Center. Saturday Tiny Tales at Missoula Public Library reading activity at 3 p.m. at the afternoon. D&D Guild for Teens at the Missoula Public Library at 3 p.m. Try sled hockey at the Glacier Ice Rink. This is for adaptive hockey playing, so for folks who have mobility issues. USA and versus Canada hockey game at 4:30 p.m. at Glacier Ice Rink. And then we got Pottery Date Night at Clay Studio at 6 p.m. You got Folklore Society Contra Dance at Elks Lodge Ballroom at 8 p.m. Elephant Gerald is going to be performing at Stave and Hoop at 8 p.m. Crime and Parody, Missoula Children's Theater show, a doc. After an amateur comedian is thrown in jail for political satire, the Onion joins his fight for free speech in a case that helps draw national attention to police conduct and accountability. This is followed by a Q&A with director Will Twites. So that's happening at the Missoula Children's Theater for another doc for the Big Sky Doc. Solid State Karaoke at the Bulldog Lounge at the West Side Lanes. Trent Brooks is going to be at the Sunrise Saloon again on Saturday night at 9 p.m. Cal Curtis in the Promised Land at Union Club. DJ Chris Mooney is going to wrap up your Saturday at the Badlander. And then, of course, on Sunday, you got Scandinavian Pancake Breakfast featured at the Sons of Norway, Nordic Pines, starting at 9 a.m. And then you got Sunday Stitch and Bits at the Space at this DIY studio at 12 noon. And then Introduction to Sewing at the Home Resource Wood Shop at 12 noon. Then we got award screening at the MCT, showing the Big Sky documentaries at 12:30 p.m. Five Valley Accordion Dance Jam at Missoula Senior Center at 1 p.m. Films You Missed, the Zootown Arts Community Center is doing a Films You Missed 2. Second chance to watch the films you may have missed, and they're going to be announcing soon through the Zootown Arts Community Center and the Big Sky Documentary Film Festival. Pinball Tournament at Odd Pitch, you got oboist Jennifer Kavanaugh and Next Gen students with SOR. For the third concert in the 2025-2026 season, the String Orchestra of the Rockies welcomes oboe soloist Missoula musician Dr. Jennifer Kavanaugh playing the poetic D minor Alboni Concerto. On this next concert, this is going to be at the University of Montana at Recital Hall starting at 4 p.m. Wild Women Archetype, an experience book club at Monroe Studio at 4:30 p.m. Figure skating and scene sculpture class at Clay Studio, 5 p.m. Figure and scene sculpture, not skater. NFL Bingo at 5 p.m. Tamarack Brewing Company. Dram Tough Trivia at the Dram Shop Central at 6 p.m. Sunday Jazz at Draftworks. We got Rocking Karaoke at the Sunrise Saloon. And then, of course, the Big Sky Documentary Film Festival is happening all weekend long, which they'll be wrapping up. And they got their big open to the public event happening at the Big Sky Pitch happening Friday, today, at the Missoula Children's Center at 10 a.m. So there's a lot of things happening. If you're interested in learning more, you can go to the Big Sky Film Fest. So let's go quickly here before we kind of wrap up the show. So you can kind of see there's the virtual schedule. You have an in-person schedule. So let's look at the virtual schedule. You can kind of get an idea of some of those things happening well until the 26th. So they definitely expanded the Big Sky Documentary Film Festival with short blogs 20th through the 26th. A lot of things happening and wrapping things up just before next Friday, looks like. So yeah, a lot of things happening, a lot of just different titles and films and all these kinds of things. And if you want to, you can also stream these very documentaries that if you don't get a chance to see them at any of these venues, even though part of the Big Sky Documentary Film Festival is being here and watching them directly. But if you're not able to, you can stream them. And Big Sky Documentary Film Festival has links for that as well. So that about does it for my morning show. I have a pretty short show for you guys, and I just kind of want to wrap up a little bit early. Otherwise, I'd be talking for another 15 minutes about not much of anything. So I want to thank you guys for joining me. And for Wake Up Missoula, I'm Scott Ramf. Take care and have a good weekend.